Hope everyone had a great morning so far. I'm really looking forward to this afternoon and sharing the next couple of hours with you and talking to you a little bit more in depth about courage, our journeys, and when courage often comes up in all of our journeys. And we have three really amazing scholars that are going to be coming up here and sharing a little bit about their journey and a little bit of how they have exercised courage in a number of different ways. So we're really excited to have them come up here. But just so you know, so the way that this session is going to go, we're going to have the three scholars come up. I'm going to introduce them. We're going to have a conversation up here together. We'll do some question and answers so I'm sure there'll be lots of things that resonate, things that as they share their stories may pop questions or some comments that you have. So we'll do some question and answers with our panelists, and then the last hour we're going to be doing a small group discussions. So after we talk a little bit more about courage, we're going to actually have you guys test yourselves in a few different scenarios and how you might respond to different scenarios. So we're going to get active in a little bit, but first of all we're going to get started with our panel. Does that sound good? Everyone feel good? Yeah. All right, so I'm going to take a seat here. And I'm going to put this here. So as I call your name, please do come up. So our first panelist is Deloris. And Deloris is a human rights activist who's been working on women's rights in Lebanon for the past 5 years. As an alumni of the MasterCard Foundation program, she holds an MA in Public Policy and International Affairs and a BS in Development Sciences and Public Health. She has also completed a program in community organizing with Harvard Kennedy School. Deloris is currently a program manager with the Lebanon Crisis Response Plan, where she aids in responding to the refugee influx in Syria. Her work falls under the protection, livelihoods, and social stability sectors. Previously, Deloris has worked on projects with the International Services for Human Rights, Help Age International, multiple UN agencies, and a number of ministries in Lebanon. She has written several research papers on human rights violations in the regions, women's access to justice, sexual violence, early marriage, and elderly abuse. She is currently starting her own program in Lebanon, which aims at spreading legal awareness and assisting young women in better understanding their rights, all while creating a supportive community base for them to better access the judicial services in the country. Please let us give a very warm welcome to Deloris. Next is Sandra. Sandra, also known as Sandra Peachy, is a YouTube vlogger and a MasterCard Foundation scholar at Earth University. Although an agricultural scientist, she also has a passion for media and entertainment. She was a TV personality in Malawi on Matindi TV, where she decided to pursue agricultural sciences, so emerged her passions, and her YouTube vlogs follow her journey as a student in Costa Rica. Sandra is also founder of a youth empowerment movement called Thinking Out Loud, which will soon expand into a second initiative called Speaking Out Loud. Please give a warm welcome to Sandra. We are so happy to have you here. And last but certainly not least, we have Ibibia. He is a MasterCard Foundation scholar, mentor, and social entrepreneur whose current social venture seeks to help youth from unbanked communities achieve financial inclusion. He is pursuing a Bachelor of Social Science degree in Politics, Philosophy, and Sociology from the University of Cape Town. Ibibia currently sits on the Forest Hill Residents Disciplinary Council and Entertainment Subcommittee, where he has helped maintain discipline and ensure for the safety and happiness of students. He serves as a senior mentor in his residence, where he works with first-year students and helps them integrate into the university communities. He is currently an open source leader and is trained in customer service and body language. At the Baobab Summit, he is participating in the Social Venture Challenge as a semi-finalist, and he's also an anime connoisseur, a bibliophile, and an occasional philosopher. Please give a very warm welcome to Ibibia. I'm going to have to ask you to define bibliophile. I read that in your biography, and I had no idea what that meant. Someone that loves books. Okay, I should have asked you that beforehand, but now we all know. Did anyone else know what that word meant? Bibliophile? Okay. Now we can all say that we learned something on day one of the Baobab Summit. We all have an extended vocabulary. All right, so thank you so much to all three of you. Just to give a little bit of background, we launched a competition on the Baobab platform, which was called Speak Your Mind. And all three of these panelists submitted either poems or essays or vlogs that shared what their definition of courage is and how courage has showed up in their life. So we got a number of submissions, I want to say in the hundreds, from wonderful scholars from all across all of our campuses. And these three really shone and really were able to articulate and share some really incredible stories of courage. So we're going to sit with the three for the next half an hour and hear a little bit more about their story. So I'm going to start with Deloris, and I'm just going to moderate. I'm just going to ask a couple questions to get them started. If you want to pass down the mic. Now, Deloris, in your submission, you talked about this idea of facing multiple forms of discrimination, whether it be from being an immigrant in Lebanon, being a woman in your discipline, and also, the idea of living in a patriarchal society. And I wanted to hear from you a little bit about what that journey was like, and where you exercised, or where you had to, or needed to exercise courage throughout, that journey and some of the discriminations that you have faced. Oh, there's a button. There's a red button at the bottom. Just hold it
there. Okay, can you hear me? So just to start with, so I was born in 1992 in Sierra Leone in West Africa, right a few months after the military coup d'etat, and civil war was ongoing there. And so I had to move around between Liberia and Sierra Leone. And after 2 years, my father passed away, so I had to move with my mother to Lebanon. Just to give you a very brief description of what it's like in Lebanon for women, women are not able to pass on their citizenship to their children in general. So my mother could not pass on her citizenship to me, my Lebanese mother. So I ended up being considered a foreigner in Lebanon. So first, I could not have the Lebanese ID, so I had to be treated as a second-class citizen. I had to always run around to renew my residency permit in Lebanon, which is not the easiest thing to do, as many of you probably know. And I also had to grow in a very patriarchal society, who from the beginning of our journey, like my mother's journey and myself, it did not make it very easy, because it's such a taboo for a single mother to raise a child on her own in Lebanon without having a man by her side to start with. So this is like the kind of discrimination. So it was discrimination at so many levels. So this is where I think it all started. So the whole journey started and ended with so much discrimination. And I think the courage, what needed courage, is actually not taking these factors into account and doing what I wanted to do anyways. And not just that, actually working to remove these kinds of discrimination. So for instance, a lot of the work I do is advocating for women's rights in Lebanon. So advocating for the right of women to pass on their citizenship to their children. That's one of them. The other things I advocate for would be also not to treat people in Lebanon who probably don't hold the Lebanese ID as second-class citizens, be it refugees or be it any kind of foreign workers in the country. So that's what I'm committed to, and I think that my personal experiences have given me the discrimination, instead of being negative, ended up being my tool to actually do whatever I'm doing today. So yes.
Thank you so much for sharing. Yes, thank you. It's such an incredible, like the idea of taking what might seem as a negative, and the barriers, the things that are coming that constantly make you feel like you can't keep going, and turning them into the motivation to keep moving and to keep trying to uncover solutions. Thank you so much, Deloris, for sharing. I'm going to go to Sandra. Sandra, So you are a vlogger, and
Yes,
you
yes,
are
I
a
am.
media personality. What I'm curious about with you is, did you, as a child, did you wake up and know that you wanted to be a media personality? Did you know that you wanted to, make YouTube videos? Did you know that did you have a passion for agriculture? What an interesting combination of two things. So I'm curious about you. When did you know what prompted that idea in your journey?
Okay, first of all, my name is Sandra Peachy. My birth name is Sandra Kalua. Please subscribe to the channel, Sandra Peachy. I love you.
Everyone do it right now.
Yeah. First of all, YouTube and media were not the plan. My father is a musician, and my mom's a stay-at-home wife, and I didn't want to follow the path of music because what happened was my father was an entertainer and he lost his job and we went through a very difficult time. So I thought, okay, media is not reliable. And then when we got to Malawi, then came the political, uprise and stuff like that, where they were trying to improve the agricultural sector, and it was stated that females who had paper or certification in the agricultural field would get high chances of working, and I thought, hey, money, So I started focusing on agriculture. I graduated from secondary school and applied for Earth University. I applied for Luana, which is like an Earth University in Malawi, but I didn't make it to both schools. I ended up becoming a cleaner at a designer's shop. I was working for $20 a month cleaning a designer's tailor shop. And it was a difficult time. I had to walk to work, sometimes I didn't have lunch, but that $20 meant something to the family. So then, by coincidence, because I talk too much, I believe I talk too much. I always say my talent is talking too much, I started talking to the clients, and I was selling a lot of suits, I was cleaning and I would tell one of the clients, look, this pants, if you wear these pants, your wife is gonna notice you. And I had a lot of people buying the suits, so my boss noticed that, and he was like, I think you're in the wrong place. So he promoted me to marketing, and he was teaching me some marketing stuff, and I continued selling. And then after that, he ran a beauty contest called Miss Blantyre. That was in 2015, and he told me, Sandra, I think you're kind of pretty. I was like, kind of, okay. And he was like, why don't you compete? And I was like, look, I don't have money. You pay me less than $100 a month. I don't have money to buy gowns or anything like that. And he was like, no, you work for a design company. We'll sponsor your outfits. Compete. What do you have to lose? The clothes are free. If you win a car and you win some money. If you lose, then you just lose, I was like, okay, why not? So I competed. And then when we were going for interviews at TV stations, one of the producers at Madindi really liked my vibe on TV on screen, and they approached me. They're like, look, we think we have a program for you. And I was like, I have no training whatsoever in presenting. And he was like, no, but you have the vibe. I was like, okay, cool. So then I took a job. So I moved from getting paid $50 a month to getting paid like $800 a month.
Wow.
And that was a very good time for my family, because the first thing I bought, I remember, with that money were beds. We didn't have beds, we slept on the floor. I bought 4 beds, and I was like, guys, I am never sleeping on the floor again. So that was interesting. And then, I don't know if it's by chance or grace, I got recalled for Earth University interviews. And after I got recalled, I said yes, just for the coincidence of it. But then 3 days before my interview, I got hit by a bus. And I was not about to go to the interviews, and my mom was like, you should go. And I was like, look, I'm sick, I got hit by a bus and all that. And then she tricked me into going by cooking beans. I really hate beans. If I'm cooking beans, I don't care if I'm dying, I'm gonna leave the house. And she cooked beans, and I was like, okay, look, there's free chicken at the interview place. I'm out. I left, and I went there, I was 2 hours late. And the lady was shocked because I was in bandages, and she's like, in crutches, and she's like, what happened? She was like, oh, I got hit by a bus, I almost didn't come. And she was like, that's so much dedication. I was like, if you only knew. So I ended up getting the scholarship. I became a MasterCard scholar. Now YouTube gets into the picture when I stopped my life as an entertainment TV personality, and I was now fully doing agriculture, which was the initial plan. But I fell into a deep depression because I grew a passion for media and entertainment. I felt like I need to talk to people, you know? And I was crying all the time. For 3 months straight, every night I was crying. And Jorge, which is an amazing psychologist from school, took my case, and he was like, Sandra, what is it that you're missing, you know? And I said, Jorge, I miss making content. And he was like, well, we have cameras. Start a YouTube channel. I was like, but I don't know how to edit. And he was like, look, there's a video editing office in the school. Work for them. At our school, you work and you get paid money. And he was like, work for them and ask them to pay you in knowledge. So I worked with them for a full year, learning how to edit. They paid me with classes. And I ended up being Sandra Peachy, the vlogger. And it took so much courage from me because that I had to come from a place of darkness, a place of fear. You know, my parents didn't understand it, the community didn't understand it. Students at university still don't understand it. They're just like, look, you're always filming, like, you know, there are farmers, and so they're like, you're always filming, what's that? So I need to convince people what I am. I need to convince people that, look, subscribe to my channel. For me, it means something. I don't do it for the money, because if you're doing it for YouTube for the money, you're gonna wait like 500 years to get paid. So yeah, it required a lot of courage for me to move from that dark place and be the person that I am today, which is why I defined courage as knowing who you are, because I discovered Sandra Peachy, the blogger. That's how I discovered courage. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. Courage is knowing who you are. And what I also really love about your story is someone much more famous than me said, you know, luck is when opportunity meets preparation. And I think that there's so many moments in that story that you just told us where you were able to take advantage of an opportunity because you were prepared and you said yes, and you went with it and you had the courage to do that. So thank you for sharing, and everyone follow Sandra Peachy. You won't be disappointed. You'll be getting some great content coming your way. All right, Ibibia. So what was really striking to me about the submission that you had and the story that you had was that it seemed like there was a pivotal moment where you read this book. It was a book about assertiveness. And you mentioned in it that assertiveness and courage they're not always two words that you put together. I really want to hear from you. What was profound about that? What made what was in that book or the idea of assertiveness change your course or change your type of thinking? And what brought you to that point?
Thank you. The thing is, most of my life, like as a young man in Nigeria, it's like, first of all, I was born into like a very abusive family. So you have that kind of stuff in which your father is very abusive and all that. And unfortunately, it affected me and impacted me in very negative ways. So you had this thing in which I became very timid, naive, very introverted, never coming out. And so I couldn't even look people in the eyes. I couldn't hold a conversation, those kind of stuff. But the good part, I would say the silver lining, I guess, was that I like books, right? And my dad had this very old collection of books and all that. So just going through books that have been banned not to read, but I still read it. And I saw a book by, I think, Robert and Michael. It's Stand Up, Speak Up, Talk Back, right? So I was like, this is interesting. Not my thing, but I read it. Talked about social situations, how to like overcome fear, you know. So at that point I was like, so I need to assert myself, right? I had to come out and do things normally I wouldn't do. So that was the point in which I started. that was like, I think that was the first point for me. It was the most important thing. That's what led to like a transformation in my life, because obviously due to that phase in my life and growing up, there was a phase in which I went through depression and all that, and being like the first male child and having a lot of a lot of expectations on your shoulder and not delivering, because for instance, there's this thing in Nigeria, neighbors, everybody, they're like, this child is, this one's useless, you understand? But the fact that I was able to like overcome all that and, come out of my shell and was able to find courage through that. So in the little things to like waking up, facing my demons. So that was what I found in that book.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing. I think just all of you being up here is already an act of courage. I believe that globally the number one fear, like above death, is public speaking. So to be up here, to not only be public speaking, but also sharing your stories and being vulnerable enough with an audience to share moments of your life. So first and foremost, you're already showing action on how to take courage by even just being up here. So my next question is for all of you, and maybe we'll start this way first. So we'll start with Ibibia and we'll go down this way. So all of you, when you were sharing your journeys, obviously you all had moments where there was obstacles, where there was barriers, where it was hard to wake up in the morning, it was hard to get out of bed, it's hard. We all have those moments of, our lows, that this isn't going to get better. And I would love to hear from all of you, what do you do in those moments? How do you keep yourself going? How do you keep yourself motivated? You all have individual passions that you're working towards, but not every day do we feel passionate. Some days we do not want to do it. So I would just love to hear from you, what do you do in those times? How do you keep yourself going?
For me, it's quite simple. So often there are moments when I want to quit, obviously, and I know everybody, a lot of people go through this. So I just think about it like, what are the stakes, And I ask myself, I give this pep talk, maybe sometimes it's like I'm crazy for why am I doing this? And when I think about it and I balance it, for instance, obviously, to make a better life for myself, for my dependents, not that I have any children, but my sisters, I have a lot of them. So taking care of my family, taking care of my mom, I think about all these things, and also not disappointing people who have invested so much in me. Community, there have been a lot of people that at a later point in my life that have pushed me, that have helped me, and also MasterCard, because I was almost giving up before I got MasterCard. But it was, to me, it was almost like a miracle that happened. So so basically it's about the stakes. That's what it is for me.
Okay, so for me, what keeps me going basically is, I don't even know how to put this, but there's this thing that we believe in called a dream job. How many of you think a dream job is 100% fun? Okay, just one person. And how many of you believe the saying that if you do what you love, work won't feel like work? Okay, a few of you believe that. Okay, the reality on the ground is everything has challenges. You could find your one true love, the love of your life, but that doesn't mean that a marriage will never have fights, right? You could have your dream job, but there are days where it's going to feel so much like a routine that you start doubting whether it's a dream job. You understand? You may feel fulfilled doing what you do, but some days you are going to feel like, why am I doing this? And if you're in a community that already doubts what you're doing, that just triples the, the effect, which is somewhat the case that I'm in. I love YouTube, I love video creation, I love content creation, but the surrounding that I'm in doesn't believe in what I'm doing. So there are many days where I do feel like giving up, but what keeps me moving forward is the saying that says the darkest nights create the brightest stars. I feel at the moments that I'm at my worst and I'm at my deepest, that's when I have the most creative content to create. I don't know if that makes sense. So for me, I get motivated by overcoming a situation, because my mom always told me that once you have hit your lowest, the only way left to go is up. So yeah, so my mom telling me that keeps me going, and taking it one step at a time also helps, because sometimes I feel like we, as humans, we overwhelm ourselves. One of the speakers tonight mentioned that we want to be successful fast, you know? So I feel like sometimes we overwhelm ourselves, because I've had comments from people telling me, Sandra, you should do videos that people will relate to, because your videos are not relatable. You should do like what other people are doing, comedy skits. And I was like, you know what? I may be having one person watching my video, but that one person is a person and they deserve the best of me. So you need to take it one step at a time. Don't overwhelm yourself. Don't have too many expectations. If they tell you that you need to achieve this in this time, in this order, if that's not your narrative, don't force yourself that way, you know? Take it one step at a time, at your own pace, at your own race. That's what I'm doing. The biggest competition you have is you from yesterday, not anybody else. Thank you.
I think for me, what I do to keep on going is actually a trip down the memory lane. So I go back and I am very inspired by an image that I have that I don't quite remember from the time, but I think about, and it has inspired me all throughout. And it's that of my mother actually stepping out of an airport. See, the time we left Sierra Leone and we came to Lebanon, it was a time of a lot of uncertainty, and this image of my mom like holding her luggage in one hand and holding a crying baby in her other, and walking into a world of uncertainty but still making that very first step out of the airport into a place she did not know, and where she knew was a place that was not going to make this easier for her, but stepping out anyways. This has been an image that I'm stuck with, and I keep on thinking about it whenever I feel like I cannot do this anymore, or whenever I feel like I don't have any more courage. And then I remember that it does not really have to be a very big step. It just has to be one step. And today, just being here, I take a trip down the memory lane, and I start to remember all these times where I felt a lot of uncertainty, and where I got a lot of rejections, and where I got people not believing in me. And I had someone, and I remember this person very well, telling me that you will never be a leader. Leaders are either born as leaders, or that's it. Either you are predefined or you're not. And just looking back at all of these moments, I think what the key was to just make a step forward. I know that all of us scholars, especially part of the MasterCard program, I think we all thought at one point that this was not going to get better. But I think that the fact that we all applied to this scholarship and we all believe that we still have a chance, and we all made the very first step, has been key to us being here, and has been the key to why everyone in this room is a leader in their own way. So I think that just remembering how much of a long way we've come makes us keep on going forward. So we know there are going to be bad times, but we know there were worse times and we overcame them. So we will overcome this and we will get to where we want. So I think that that's what I do, and I think if we all do that, we will have this push to keep on moving.
Thank you all so much. I think that there was just so many important points. I loved your points on, being realistic with yourself. Like you don't dream job. What does that really mean? And sometimes our expectations are so high that they, debilitate us. How do we possibly get there because our expectations are so high? And then constantly grounding ourselves into what motivates us, reminding ourselves what matters, our relationships, and why we're all working so hard for our families, for ourselves, for our communities. So thank you all so much for sharing these nuggets of wisdom with all of us. I'm going to ask another question to all of you again, because you're all just hitting home runs with all of these questions, and you all have so many incredible things to say. So my next question is about, so none of us live or operate in isolation. We don't, we grow up in families and communities. We have people that have gone, along our journeys that have really influenced, motivated us, sometimes for our benefit and for the good, sometimes that are challenging and things that we need to overcome. So I'm curious for all of you to speak to, what is the benefit of community in your journey? Who are those people along your journey that also helped, either motivate you or keep you going on your journey? So, Deloris, since you have the mic.
So for me, community has not always been like the most supportive stakeholder in my journey. The community has been very opposing, and I think that the community is the first side where we get our "you cannot do it" from. Like the community makes everything sometimes harder for us. But I think that has shifted in the past year when I did a community organizing program. That actually taught me how to identify people in your community with probably the same interests that you have, the same values, and then invest that for your own cause. So what I did, like very randomly, I actually wanted to start my own program in Lebanon, and I just wanted to see what my friends on social media think, and I posted a question like, have you ever faced injustice, and who hasn't? Like, I mean, we all have our own experience with it, but I did not know that people were actually going to come and answer this question or tell me, yes, this has happened, and tell their stories. I was surprised 3 days later to really receive more than 300 messages from people telling me that yes, I have experienced injustice, and some people even shared their own stories. So I was feeling like maybe I had my image of the community very mixed up, and maybe I had to look at it in a different way, because there are so many stories out there, and I should learn how to organize the people with these stories to actually have an amplified effect. So I started looking at, I started contacting these people and doing small meetings of one-to-ones. And what I've learned that once you create this one-on-one relationship with the people who have similar stories in your community, you actually get a lot of people who will not really leave this fight. Because when you gather people in the room and you don't know what each one of them has to say, you might leave the room thinking that you've made a very strong network and then discover that your network is really weak. But when you talk with these people one-on-one and then you get similar values and beliefs, you can get out of this room and actually get back to them whenever you need them for any support. So that's how I started. I started doing one-to-ones with a lot of people in the community, and then I created a small leadership team, and we started doing some legal research in Lebanon to see where are the gaps in some of the laws. And then these people actually started like a snowball. It was a snowball effect. So these people started also doing one-on-ones with other people in the community, also people with similar beliefs. And so the network is growing, and it's currently in process, and I can see it day by day growing. And the community, like just identifying these people who think like you and who have similar beliefs, it makes you feel like you have an army, like really you have an army behind you, and now you can do this fight better. So I think that that was maybe the key. Like once I understood what community organizing is and how to organize community, how to create like everlasting relationships, and how to really create a strong bond. This is this has been key. Like identifying that and knowing that was really key. And now I feel like my community is really very much supportive of what I'm doing, and probably they could be sometimes what keeps me moving on. Like these people now think that I'm doing something good, and I really don't want to disappoint them. So it goes both ways, I guess.
Okay, for me, I've had a really large challenge with people understanding, because I've mentioned this several times, that people really don't understand what I'm doing. But I feel like there's some people who will always believe in you in the midst of people who don't believe in you. Because I mentioned Jorge, which is the psychologist. He's one of my biggest supporters. He was actually my first subscriber. And the school's communications team, people who work in media at school, understand like what I'm trying to do, and they have been my mentors. They have taught me everything I know. They guide me. They tell me how to curate content and how to put it in such a way that it's friendly to everybody in the community. So it's been a journey trying to convince people who are not in media to understand what I'm trying to do. And a big problem that I felt with, like she mentioned, my project, which is the Thinking Out Loud project, I was talking about this last night with the guys, that I feel like the narrative that we're given, that if you don't graduate from school, that's the end of your life, is a very dangerous narrative to give to young people. I feel like we should show them that there are other options in life, you understand? So Thinking Out Loud is a movement whereby I identify people with passions for different talents. So if you can sing, if you can dance, anything like that, we connect you with mentors, because mentorship is very important. If you don't have a mentor, go out there and find yourself a mentor, because knowledge is something that's not meant to be kept, it's supposed to be transmitted. So yeah, I help these youth take the non-traditional jobs and turn them into something they can generate an income from. So I'm talking about creation of musicians, football players, painters, anything that you have a talent with. And it has been a challenge with their parents, with the community, because there is a sad belief that if you're not a doctor, if you're not a lawyer, if you're not, these white collar jobs, then you're not successful. That's the definition of success. And I feel that's so wrong. I feel we're so behind in that definition, because there's some other places like the US or Costa Rica whereby they unite the two, because education is important. So we have things like sports scholarship, dance scholarships, you understand? In Africa, we don't have that. We don't. If you're going out and you're kicking a ball, your mother's going to shout at you and tell you you're wasting time, go inside and read a book. She doesn't know that kicking a ball can lead you to reading a book. You understand? So the community, I feel like if you identify people, because like she said, it hasn't been on her side, but if you identify people with the same ideas with you, you are able to create something and move forward.
So in my case, initially I didn't even know what community was, because my kind of lifestyle was very isolated. So the first thing to do was first to overcome fear, right? Because I had to see the gains that community brings. So obviously my able companion, that book helped. And I stepped out and, I ended up meeting people who really helped me. People who mentored me, people who, just, gave me a pat on the back, you can do this, and to me that was very important, because to me it was like a matter of life and death, because, in know how depression is. So those people helped transform, I guess, my life. And yeah, and the way I've utilized it, that is the whole idea of community, is that I've been like, because of what I've gotten, I think someone mentioned, transmitting knowledge and all that. That's why I decided to be involved in mentorship and giving back in my community. I've been involved in a lot of leadership stuff in my university because I know a lot of students go through this. Like in my residence, students jump, they die because of the pressures of academic work. So we identify the students and we try to help them. We try to make them feel comfortable because our university is that type in which you feel like a stranger, like you don't fit in when you come. So most of the students come from poor backgrounds and since I can relate to most of their stories, it's easier, you understand, to help them and give back what has been given to me.
Thank you all so much. I think it's such an important thing to remember that oftentimes when we hear the newer community, it's seen as a positive thing, but actually sometimes the people that are immediately around us are, give us some of the biggest challenges that we have to overcome. And it's not an assumption that everyone's going to be bought into what we want to do and what our dreams are. So thank you all for sharing and and then also the ways that we can then transform and make things better for the next generation through mentorship and through creating positive relationships with those that are younger than us. So thank you all for your commitment in that area as well. So it's so impossible to, in a half an hour to package your entire journey, everything that you've learned, everything that you've done, and transmit it all in such a short period of time. So this is our last question, and then I'm going to open it up to the audience for any questions or thoughts that the audience has. But if you just had one thing, one part of your, one takeaway that you want, everyone that's in this room that's sharing this space with us to take away from your journey, it could be a piece of advice, it could be whatever it is, what is your one takeaway, the headline, if you will, for people to remember what was so important, how courage was so important in your journey?
For me, I think the most important thing is that you should embrace fear, because I was always this scared person, right? I was always fearful. Embrace fear, it's a necessary human emotion. If you can embrace it, then you can be courageous, because as long as you don't kill, as long as it doesn't threaten your survival, believe me, fear, if you embrace it, it comes with excitement. You become excited about what you want to do, And sorry to add an extra, but in my own story, things like waking up, those little things, they're very important. When you don't want to wake up, when you don't want to do anything at all, like you feel like giving up, just remind yourself, think about where you've come from and where you're going. Just see yourself in the future, and you'll be able to move ahead and achieve things.
So the biggest thing that I would like people to take from me is, well, one, I just got it from the speaker, from the TED Talk, so I'm going to add that on top of mine. She said, courage is not the absence of fear, but overcoming fear. So what Ibibia said is true, because it's not easy. We're always going to be scared. But courage is overcoming that fear. And for me, I need all of us to remember that we are like tea bags. And if we don't put ourselves into water, we will not blossom into what we're supposed to be. So just, learn. Go out there, put yourself around people who can help you. Let yourself, give yourself that water, give yourself that environment, and then you find yourself doing things that even you didn't expect.
I agree with both of them. them about courage not being the absence of fear. Actually, this has been because I get afraid. I was afraid of being here, so I do agree with all that. But going anyways, that's the key. But what I would want you to take from me would be that courage can start with one person. Courage can start with any one of us. So we can wake up one day and decide that yes, there is something we want to change. And I'm not talking about radical change, doing a protest, changing a law, fighting the system. I'm talking about simple acts of courage that we do in our everyday life, and it can start by each one of us. So if we go to a community and then we start teaching small values, like let's take a household into account. In our own household, if we start from very young ages to teach our girls and boys about gender equality, we start dividing the chores between the girls and the boys equally, and then we start telling them to treat other people with respect from very young ages, in 15 years you would have created a generation that definitely believes more in gender equality. And that actually started from your own household, and it started with a very simple action that you probably did not know would cause so much change. But in a few years, this change will gather. It would have started with you, and it would have contributed to one of the biggest issues we face today in the world, which is gender inequality, for instance. So yes, I think it starts from either one of us, and we should go out and just do it.
The issue of white-collar jobs, being an engineer, being a lawyer, being a doctor, that's what we mostly recognize by most of our parents. So personally, I love media, just like you, except that I do blogging and writing. But there's that pressure that comes from the family. They don't really understand what you're doing. They think you're playing. You don't know what you're doing. Can you just get on track and do what you're supposed to do? So I understand, I completely get your frustrations, but getting out of that pressure and moving up and taking that decision and being like, okay, this is what I love and I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. That's what counts, because at the end of the day, people actually see the fruits of what you're doing. So I highly appreciate what you shared.
Okay, so thank you for all what you've said us today. I have a question. So yeah, I've had this idea to give back to my community for a very long time. I've had people who encourage me to do it, who are pushing me to do it, but it's in the line of a non-governmental organization, that's non-profit. So, and me looking at my background, my family, and seeing that if I go that way, it will be difficult to support myself. And like he said, in the West African community, being a first child, so much is expected from you. Like your siblings and all these people are dependent on you. This is preventing me from taking the step and giving back, because I'm looking for something else to do to support my family before I can give myself to give back. So I wanted to know what advice you have for me.
Well, personally, I feel like it's possible to be involved in the non-governmental organization stuff and also give back. That's because, like, for instance, let's say you have a passion or you have something you want to do. For instance, like I'm studying politics, philosophy, sociology. It's not a normal thing that probably will earn you money, right? And yeah, obviously. And but I still decide to pursue my social venture, because the thing with social venture, which is a way that is that you can also earn from it. I think you can earn a living from it. So I think maybe you should find your passion, and normally if you pursue what you love, often money, you're able to earn also. Because at my university, for instance, there's the MasterCard Entrepreneurship Fund, and they put us in this mentorship ops, and we talk about things we want to do, how we want to transform our community and all that. So with that, they tell us that if our ideas, you understand, pass the test, it's something that can impact, make an impact, they are going to fund it. And from there, obviously, I think with time, you'll be able to earn. Because people that are involved in NGOs, they still earn. They earn salaries. It's either you're probably working with an NGO that has support from, let's say, the United Nations, USAID and all that. So I think it's possible. You should just pursue what you want to do, honestly.
I also wanted to add on that, like, I run, it's not an NGO, but it's a movement, Thinking Out Loud. You need to understand the term NGO means that the profits that you make from whatever you're doing should not go to a person or the people of the companies. But an NGO does have costs for running costs, salaries like he mentioned. So if you are an active participant in the organization, you will pay costs, you will pay salaries, you will pay your salary. But the profits that you make from that are not meant to be used for personal uses, but go towards something. So like Earth University has thousands of hectares of bananas. We have banana plantation, and it's an NGO, they call it UATH. How do you say UATH in English? VHT. I think that's how it speaks. Okay, it's in Spanish. So Earth University takes the profits, so people who work in that organization get paid, they pay all their costs, and the profits from that pays some of the some scholarships that are from Earth University. So the students, where they benefit from that profit. So you can run your NGO, make your money, but then all the profits that you have go towards the project. You understand?
Sorry, what if the NGO doesn't make profits? It's a social movement that really demands time, a lot of time, but doesn't make profits.
I think what I wanted to tell you is that if you really are so passionate about creating an NGO and you really feel like you're so committed to giving back in such a way, you can go for community organizing along with your job. Like, I mean, you don't have to start with creating an NGO, you can start with community organizing. That's an option while you actually get yourself a job that actually makes money. And once you're at an advanced stage, because I don't know where you are at your career now, but if you're still at an early stage and you really need the money for whatever purpose, then maybe you can do a community organizing. Wait until you progress a few years in your career. You would have created a community base that would be very supportive to your NGO, and you would have made some money, you would have supported the people you support. And then at that stage, you can maybe make then some sacrifices, and then you can probably leave your job or create an NGO. Because at the start, I know it's very challenging. I remember I have had to go through this challenge, and community organizing is a very important thing that you can do, and it's very fulfilling and very impactful as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for sharing your stories. They are wonderful. I have a question though for Deloris. Yes, I'm more interested in your story. What platforms are you using to advocate for the mothers to pass on their citizenship to their children? And also, what kind of the support are you getting from the government? Isn't it something that can get you arrested? I'm just interested to know.
So I'm not using social media a lot. I use a lot of field work because in the work that I do, you actually have to be in contact, in personal one-on-one contact with the people. So I go usually to camps, refugee camps in Lebanon, and I do awareness sessions, and that's how I get through some of the things that I want to get through. I sometimes use my Facebook, but not really, like not very extensively. It's not my main platform. So I use awareness sessions. I use creating, like, now what I'm doing is actually starting a petition. So I'm using a petition, for instance. And it's very interesting because as a non-Lebanese, I cannot really submit a petition. And as a non-Lebanese, I cannot really start a protest without getting a protest, for example, without getting approval from the government that I can do that. But I do it in a very, sometimes in a very informal way, so that I don't get arrested and so that I can get my message through. But really, I focus a lot on field and being in contact. I usually talk about early marriage and its negative consequences in camps, where people might be very violent, I would say, once they hear you preaching against, like talking about something that's very opposing to what they believe in for so many years. But still, this one-to-one contact, it's really important. So that's what I do.
Okay, so I'm Rosalinda from Ghana, and my question is related to parental control and taking courage. So I find myself with foster parents, and most times, most of my projects, I run a non-governmental organization. And one thing about parental control is that most times when I want to do a project, my foster dad would be like, you have to tell him before you even think of like the idea, you conceive the idea, you have to tell him that, oh, this is what I thought of before even taking an initiative. And I think this kind of prevents we young individuals from trying and making mistakes, because they don't give us the room to try on our things on our own and to make the mistakes and ask for the necessary guidance. So how do we young people convince, especially we Africans, convince our African parents to give us the opportunity and the room to create mistakes and try to work it out on ourselves? Because it's really something that I really had a lot of challenge, and I find myself practicing courage every time, because most times I just do it anyway and later on I apologize. I still do it. But most people tell me, most of my friends who still have that mentality of, yes, you have to tell your parents everything. They tell you that it is not right that you do this, you don't tell your parents. But I think there are some things in terms of decision making that we should be given the opportunity to try things on our own and not everything. And that is where I see where we individuals practicing courage and trying to take charge and creating change on our own.
Okay, I'm going to take this one because I've had myself having to explain myself to my parents a lot. Okay, so the challenge that we have is, as African children, there's a certain degree of respect and communication you're supposed to have with your parents, you know? And them, as parents, there's certain beliefs that they have, that they're responsible over you and they're here to guide you, which is very true, right? But now, changing, like I believe Deloris can relate to this, changing ideologies that have been there for years is a challenge. It's like you could go to your uncle and try and explain to him something, you know, like something you want to do. And if your uncle says, that's not what we do in our culture, I'm telling you, that's going to be a war. Like, just for him to tolerate the idea is going to be a struggle. So I believe the best thing you can do is communicate with them, you know. I feel like they want to feel like they're playing their role in your life. So don't make them feel excluded. You understand? Communicate with them, tell them how you feel and what's your thoughts, and then explain to them why you feel you need an independence from them. It's not going to be easy, that I assure you. It's not going to be easy. But explain it to them to a point at least where there's tolerance. Sometimes I feel like with me and my family, my uncles who are lawyers and stuff like that, who are totally against me doing social media, I feel like I've explained myself to a point where they don't agree, but now they tolerate it. You understand? And if you can reach a point of tolerance and respect, that's good enough. Because then you can pursue what you have to do, and you don't have to fight the fight, because everybody respects everybody's boundaries and projects. So communication, that's the best thing you can do.
So I can sort of relate because my dad is a very stubborn one, very, very stubborn. And also the old vices and, you know, the fact that he was a very violent person. It didn't help because he was violent, he was drinking, so you had to meet him when he's sober to have like conversations. So I think it relates to that book I read, like positive assertiveness. So being able to speak up for yourself, but knowing how to speak up. So there's negative assertiveness, there's positive assertiveness. You have to know which. You have to know how to approach things. And you will not always get what you want, but to an extent. Also there's the idea of trade-offs, right? You know, it's not, sometimes something has to go for something, you know? And I think it also has to do with that. Maybe you guys will tolerate yourself at some point. Right now, it's not like we have the best relationship, but at least we, you know, we can have conversations. He respects me, and it's not the best, but at least I've been able to move past that phase in which there is no, like, basically he disregards everybody at all. So yeah, that's all I have to say.
I think that something important that because you have an NGO, you probably have to keep in mind is that you have a message that you're getting through. So sometimes there might be sacrifice, and if the thing that you're doing now really opposes everything your family has been used to for the past tens of years, then sometimes maybe you should weigh the pros and cons, and maybe sometimes you would have to actually take a distance. And by take a distance, I don't mean exclude yourself from your family at all, but I mean like stepping back, because sometimes being in a toxic environment where everybody, even the closest people, are letting you down, might really dim your light, as they say, and might actually make you feel very helpless, and might actually lead you to give up one day and not continue what you were probably born to do. So I think like distancing yourself is not so bad as well. You know, it could be an option.